Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. I am Kevin Rogers as we take a look at Tuesday, October 5th, 2021, and Major League Baseball taking center stage tonight with the Yankees and the Red Sox meeting up in the American League wild card game. Tomorrow's the Cardinals and the Dodgers in LA, and football will return coming up on Thursday. Rams and Seahawks in Seattle for Week 5, and last night we saw the Chargers beat the Raiders. We'll talk about that coming up in just a moment. Bruce Marshall will join us to look at some trends for the weekend and also look back at last night's Raiders-Chargers game. First, want to tell you about BetMGM and a really great promotion now for new players only. If you bet $10, you can win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. And again, for new players only, must be 21 or older, and it's legal in the following states: New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Virginia, Iowa, Washington, D.C., and Arizona. BetMGM, they are the king of sports books. And now we bring on our friend Bruce Marshall joining us. And Bruce, the author of Tech Trends that we see every week on VegasInsider.com. Bruce has been around a while, and he's got the pulse on everything. Bruce, good to talk to you again. How are you?
I'm good. Looking forward to baseball, football. Heck, we got hockey and basketball in a couple of weeks. October, it's everything happening in October as usual.
Now, Bruce, what were your thoughts on last night's game? The Chargers beat the Raiders. It was Oakland versus San Diego at one time. It was also L.A. versus San Diego. Now it's L.A. versus Las Vegas. What were your thoughts on Justin Herbert and the Chargers getting the win last night at home?
And it seems like every week it's like a coming out party for Justin Herbert. And the Chargers are very happy that Miami decided to take Tua because he is turning into an absolute star. I'm a little surprised the Chargers are looking this solid early, though. I wasn't sure how it was going to go with the new coach, Brandon Staley. I mean, he's young enough to be he knows what he's doing, and that was when they hired him, a defensive version of McVay. He worked with the Rams last year as their defensive coordinator, but that was sort of the thought that he gives that sort of a cutting edge on the deep side, and offense. Herbert and his are pretty good. They look good. This out about the Raiders, though. They come in 3-0 last night, but they won 2 of those games in overtime. That might be a false alarm with them. I would really watch the Raiders starting to wobble here coming up. This has been sort of their pattern with John Gruden. They've looked good for a while early in the seasons, and then they hit these flat spots and they end up around 500. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how the Raiders end up. The Chargers, though, I think have legitimate to make a run this year, as long as they keep Herbert healthy.
Now, Bruce, let's look ahead to this weekend in college football. We'll get to the baseball in just a little bit, the wild card game tonight with the Yankees and Red Sox. But first, I want to look at some of your tech trends, and you produce those every single week, and just fascinating nuggets that you uncover with the however many college football games there are, and of course the NFL. Let's start in college. A couple of big games this week, and you got the do we call it still the Red River Shootout? I don't know what the PC name is, but in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl, it's the Sooners, it's the Longhorns. They played a wild game there last year. Oklahoma won, and now Oklahoma's laying points again against Steve Sarkisian's Longhorns.
Correctly now, we're supposed to say Red River Showdown, though you shootout by me. I've been around the Cotton Bowl neighborhood, so we gotta be careful using shootout too. However, I think, Oklahoma, the eye test isn't that important if you keep winning. And Oklahoma has now won 13 in a row since last season. But Kevin, they aren't in the eye test. They're having trouble covering numbers against modest opposition. Kansas State, West Virginia, Tulane, Nebraska. Their only time they really blew the doors open was against Western Carolina. I think Texas is this week, and the Nuggets here into last year, and that game went 4 overtimes, by the way, Kevin, before Oklahoma finally won it by 8. Texas had covered 6 straight of these regular season games in the Cotton Bowl. Now, they had a game at Arlington in the Big 12 title game that Oklahoma won very close, but did cover in 2018. But the regular season, Texas has beaten Oklahoma a few times and had been covering every year until last year. And they darn near covered that good of really. Oklahoma missed a field goal at the end of the third overtime that would have won the game for Oklahoma, but covered the game for Texas. Steve Sarkisian, I think, put this thing on track. I was a little skeptical higher, but we talked to people down there. And a lot of them some Apple-like characteristics with Texas this year. Cut down the penalties. They've cut down. They're sending plays. They're better organized than they were with Tom Herman. And I was a Herman fan, but I see what they're saying down there now. We might have lost the scent on Texas a bit early in the Arkansas game, but they're really good now. We see what John Robinson can do running the ball. And Casey Thompson is a playmaker at quarterback. Just get them this week. And I think this is the best team in the Big 12. Sorry, my Oklahoma friends, but that's how I see it. We had it 5:30 was our score forecast, and this one for Texas. So I think Sark, this would be a big one for him. And series history suggests close, take the points. Texas will be the way to go.
All right, let's look at Georgia and Auburn now, Bruce. And the Bulldogs, looks like nobody can stop them right now. And we'll see what happens when they play Florida coming up later this month. But Auburn off a big win over LSU on the road, and now Auburn a nice underdog at home against Georgia.
Yeah, and the good Bo Nix showed up. The Dr. Jekyll of Bo Nix last week, not the Mr. Hyde you see with him on the road. That was very encouraging. And listen, they were 2 weeks ago, Georgia State. I mean, Carson was about 45 seconds to enroll in witness protection if you lost that Georgia State. But they come back last week, win that game. This is a little different, though. And Georgia, I've been watching these guys, and some of the superlatives we're talking about the defense. I'm buying into this now. This defense front is so good. I mean, they just wreck teams. I mean, they wrecked Arkansas last week, and Arkansas had come in being bully Texas A&M. They looked very good, and they had no chance in that game. So this defense looks so good. They did crumple Auburn last year and had a very tough game. You can't run the ball, guys. So I think they'll take Bigsby away. Now, Georgia, the offense has been my problem with Kirby for the last few years. This team looks a little better off because they're able to run the ball, and then you've got either quarterback, Stetson Bennett or JT Daniels, I think can work fine. So that doesn't matter. This defense is so good. I'm not going to go against Georgia here. They're winning, and the only game they haven't covered was that South Carolina game, and that was a late score by South Carolina when they were down touchdowns in that game. Georgia, I go ahead and lay it. Anything under 3 touchdowns, I think, looks good for them.
Let's take a look now, Bruce, inside the Big Ten, Penn State and Iowa. And look, Penn State has played well so far. They had that big win over Auburn. And then you look at Iowa, they continue to roll, and their defense is great. That number of holding teams below 24 points. It's been a long streak for Kirk Ferentz. And what'd you dig up with the Hawkeyes and the Nittany Lions?
Yeah, totals here. This looks like an under and Penn State side. Our buddy Chris David will like this. They've won 9 in a row. They've covered 8 of those. The only one they didn't cover was Villanova a couple weeks ago. So after 5 to start last year, and last loss it had was against Iowa last year, 41-21. So they've won 9 games in a row since, and they've covered all of those FBS opposition. The only one they didn't was against Villanova. You look at this, you've got one team allowing 12 points per game, the other team allowing 11 points per game. So you might think they'll have trouble even getting over that low total of 41.5. I wonder, though, if Iowa, they forced all the turnovers last week on Maryland, and they wrecked Maryland early on in that game. I don't know that Penn State's going to self-truck like that. Clifford looks like he's got a little sharper edge this year. I think maybe bringing Mike in as the new offensive coordinator has helped streamline this Penn State offense. He's more likely to make big plays down for Spencer Petras, who is a pretty good game manager. Iowa sort of lets it do bidding in these games and tries to set up the offense on a shorter field. I'll say this about Iowa, though. There is always a narrow through the Big Ten West to get into the doorstep of the Final Four. We saw that in 2015 with. And if you miss some of the boys in the Eastern half loop and you can win through the West, you have a chance to get to the Big Ten title game. And if you're still undefeated, you can get to 4 if you win. Iowa came 30 seconds away from that in 2015 against Michigan State. So that is very much alive. They wouldn't have State until they get Annapolis. Penn State might have something to say about that. Anyway, I'm talking a lot here. I think Penn State's got a shot here. I would still look under, even under this total, which isn't too high, but a little sharper edge here. If it comes down to Clifford versus Petrus, and maybe that's not going to be the determining factor, but by me, I'd rather have a quarterback who I think can make a few plays when you need it, and I think that's Penn State.
Now, what other, out of all the other games on the board, Bruce, we know there's a bunch of them. What other teams have you kept an eye on, or other trends you've uncovered that are pretty important?
Well, I look at for turning things around. Tennessee and Josh Heupel, and you go back to the last year and a half, and even early this season, he wasn't covering numbers. When you have a big effort like last week, and stuff can turn around very quick. And Tennessee's game against last week, that was what Frontier fans were looking for. It took about a month and a couple of injuries at quarterback. Hooker was in, he was out. Joe moved out there, back to Hooker now. But are now running UCF style. They are running as fast as Heupel's did. Missouri had a chance last week. Absolutely nuts in that game. And I think Carolina's in real trouble this week. If got this thing going now, and nobody in the SEC is playing that sort of tempo. So I would really watch Tennessee here, South Carolina this week. There is one. A couple of other teams are starting to play. Navy's starting to play again, and Navy had been a favorite of mine for years, and a lot of people, because they are a very good underdog. They slow the games down. The offense really had some problems. It looks like Coach Ken has figured things out. That was a very uplifting win over last week. They played Houston, very tough the week before that. And now it comes in here this week, or the SMU game this week. This has been a tough matchup in recent years. SMU's crawled into the rankings. They don't really belong there. I think Navy is kind of interesting this week. One more, out in the Mountain West. San Jose State was our darling last year. They did not lose the spread decision in the regular season, and that went back a great point spread team for about 2.5 years for Brent Brown. Not this year, though. He's got some quarterback issues. They've over 4 in a row. Florida State's starting to play now. Back going to Toledo and winning that game handily, going to Iowa and give Buckeyes trouble. We see how good Iowa is. Talked about them just a second ago, Kevin. State's got something going on for you, so that's another team I'd look at. Colorado State, Navy, those are some teams I think on the ascent.
Now let's look, Bruce, at the NFL for this week, and we saw how last week Joe Judge continued his tremendous run as a road underdog. I mean, the Giants, a lot of people may laugh at them, but they went into New Orleans. They won in overtime last week, and Joe Judge continues to cover when he's an underdog on the road. Yeah,
I mean, I have a lot of fun writing about the Giants because at home they don't do it. I like to poke fun at them sometimes, but I write. I mean, Hoda and Al Roker could tell you, with the Giants on the road when it's 11-1 the last 12. Where did this come from? Actually, that's a trend that went back into the Coughlin years, and it disappeared, but it's back now with Joe Judge. And they're getting points at Dallas this week. And I know there's the media's in hysterics now about they have looked really good. But there are some reasons here to believe Giants might be able to hang in there again this week. Most all of the in Jones' weapons boxer, Galladay is back. He had a good game last week. Saints, Saquon Barkley was back %. Great long touchdown catch from Jones this week. So all pieces are there, and Jones is trying to show there's enough Jones to think he might have something going here. You're getting a touchdown here in Dallas. I know the Cowboys are good, and that was a vintage last week, and Dak is putting up some very good numbers. Impressive win against Carolina. But the Giants seem to have this thing going, and who thought they could beat the Saints last week? They did, and you got a little bit of a cushion from the odds maker, so why not just play that again? They are the road underdog supreme in the NFL.
The Broncos and Steelers, and I don't want to say, Bruce, that now we're going to find out who the real Broncos are after losing to Baltimore and beating some teams that they should have beat the first 3 weeks. Teddy Bridgewater got hurt, which is not fair. But now the Broncos face the Steelers. Pittsburgh pretty desperate after losing the last 3, and the Steelers a short favorite now at home.
Yeah, angle to look here. is the under. That's not a big total as we screen there at 40. But these teams have combined 8-0 to the under. And there's some reasons for that. Joe's team, the way the Broncos, they want their defense to do things, they have to injuries. What worries me a little bit this week is if Bridgewater can't go. He was knocked out last week. This is not the same team without him. Luck can be a negative, and he does for the confidence in the troops the way Bridgewater does. So I'd be a little bit careful about taking the Broncos again here this week if it's going to be Luck. If Teddy B is playing, and I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but if he did, that would be a stronger pick for me on Denver. Pittsburgh's got big problems with this offense right now. Big Ben's valedictory season is not going too well. I mean, they're wondering now if they've even should have brought him back. He's trying to learn Matt Canada's new offense here. It's a lot more deception and tricks, things that Pittsburgh hasn't been used to. The terminology, the nomenclature, everything's different, and you can see this all struggling. It's not this. They're not a good team right now. But both these offenses struggling. Unless Locke is in there and makes some bad mistakes, this thing's going to go under again. 40 is still these teams who don't score much right now. These are still functional in Pittsburgh side for sure. And like we said, these teams are going under bloody game, Kevin. So why not do it again?
And Bruce, finally, before I let you go, Yankees and Red Sox tonight. The AL wild card gets underway, and New York favor J.D. Martinez out for Boston, and Garrett Cole the mound for New York. So do you like the Yankees in this spot as a favorite or the Red Sox at home?
Yeah, I'm going to give the Yankees a whirl here. They just went into Boston a half ago, and they dominated in that weekend. Cole causes me to pause a little bit right now because this hamstring has bothered him some, and he has not been all that sharp the last couple of weeks. And Eovaldi the other way, I think right now, he and Sale, they're the aces for Boston. I think he might be able to go a little deeper in this game. But with Judge and Stanton swinging hot bats, it seems like the Yankees were kind of streaky this year. These two guys were at the same time. They're very, very tough. And they certainly destroyed the Bo Sox up at Fenway a week and a half ago in that series. So if get through 6 innings or so, Aaron Boone's got enough in his bullpen there. I think they're going to score runs here tonight. And the Yankees, I think, will advance after this game and move on to play the Rays in the next round.
Now, I just want your thoughts on this. The Giants, how far do you think they can go? I mean, they were a team that had a 75.5 win total to start the season. Arizona's right next to them, and they finished 52 games above 500. So what do you think about the Giants if they end up drawing the Dodgers? If LA wins tomorrow, how far do you think the Giants can end up going?
I think the whole thing. This team has some magic about it. They sort of remind me of the way they won games this year. That bullpen is so deep. They didn't blink at the Dodgers this year. They won the season series, and that's why they finished a game ahead of them. Everybody in that lineup contributes. That's why they're not going to miss Brandon Belt that much. I mean, they've had, and it's a veteran team. This is an older lineup right now. This is a one-shot deal. But guys like Lamont Wade and Darren Ruff have come in there, and they've been. We've seen them. I mean, Heidi Watney's had them on her highlights like every night this year on MLB Network because they hit clutch homers and they have that bullpen. Madison Bumgarner said something interesting last week because he's backs now, and he's at the Giants in the postseason, and there's Logan Webb. But he said there's something about wearing that uniform in the playoffs, and it just raises the game a little bit. And we've seen the Giants do that over the last decade. And I dare say they're my pick right now to do it. There's something magic in this team. And I think with all the oars in the water it's been all year, and I didn't see it kind of like this either. I thought they were a good over. I didn't think 107 wins. Gabe Kapler, he's done this good a job. The proof is in the pudding there. What the Giants are and they're special.
Yeah, and they played very well, and Gabe Kapler was run out of Philadelphia, and they didn't think he'd be the guy. I'm sure they trade Joe Girardi for Gabe Kapler right now to try to get them back in the playoffs. But the Giants, you're right, Bruce, just the last 10-plus years with Bruce Bochy when he was there, they were getting to the World Series several times and won. Now with Gabe Kapler doing the same thing, and not really a frontline starter. I mean, that you're going through DeSclafani, Kevin Gausman, Logan Webb, even Cueto has been up and down, Alex Wood, and they're doing it. So we'll see. We'll see if they can end up going to the World Series. Bruce Marshall, he can be found on VegasInsider.com. He handicaps everything. He handicaps football, soccer, basketball, baseball, hockey, everything that you can think of. Bruce is on top of. And check out his tech trends as well for NFL and college. Bruce, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, Kevin. Hey, thanks, man.
All right, you got it. And there is Bruce Marshall, who has he's been around a long time, and he has a lot of great insight. And his tech trends, really a lot of good numbers on every game. It doesn't just have to be Oklahoma, Texas. It could be a MAC game. It could be Conference USA, Sun Belt, doesn't matter. He's on top of all of that. Now, I wanted to go back to the baseball game tonight, and we'll do that in just 1 second. But first, before we continue, want to tell you about DraftKings and their national championship. This is a pretty cool thing. There's a $1 million top prize for the Sportsbook National Championship. Now, this tournament's going to be held in Weehawken, New Jersey, which is right outside of New York City at the Enview Hotel. And the tournament starts Friday, November 5th, and it ends Sunday, November 7th. And what's up for grabs? $1 million and bragging rights. Exactly. Players can bet on 3 different sports, NBA, NFL, and college football. There's a $10,000 buy-in for the tournament, and players will receive a $5,000 bankroll for the weekend to use to place bets throughout the tournament by entering a $5,000 pool. And you need to make the bets beforehand. There's no live betting. And also, you'll see the leaderboard that's going to track the bets as well. You must spend at least $1,000 throughout the weekend to be eligible for the prize pool. But there is no limit to the number of bets you can place as long as you place at least one bet. And you can play online as well. It's only restricted to New Jersey. Additional states, though, can be added. The Sportsbook National Championship, $1 million top prize at DraftKings. Now, tonight's baseball game between the Yankees and the Red Sox. And this number has gone up a little bit because J.D. Martinez, he is out for Boston. He will not play tonight. And here's the thing with J.D. Martinez. A couple of things. Number one, if you don't know how he got hurt, is a sprained ankle. He sprained his ankle not on a play, but when he ran out to right field over the weekend against the Nationals, and he tripped over second base. He was, I guess, running over second base. He tripped or fell awkwardly and sprained his ankle. So he will not play tonight. Now, again, the Red Sox are trying to get through tonight and not worry about Tampa Bay in the next round. So that's obviously a big hit for the Red Sox, and not in a good way. But on the flip side, J.D. Martinez is batting under 200 against the Yankees this year. 2 home runs, 3 runs batted in. So his numbers, we know he's a very good hitter, but he's not fared well against New York. Now, going back to Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole this season, the Yankees split 4 starts of his against Boston. He won the last one opposite Nathan Eovaldi back in late September. Yankees have swept the last 2 series with the Red Sox, last one coming at Fenway. And it's easy to say, all right, the pitching advantage is with Garrett Cole and the Yankees tonight, and now with Nathan Eovaldi. And Eovaldi has pitched well at Fenway Park. Red Sox 7-2 his last 9 starts. 2 of the losses came to the Yankees, so the 2 losses. But Red Sox still have a lot of firepower in the lineup with Rafael Devers, with Kyle Schwarber, and a lot of other pieces in there besides J.D. Martinez and Xander Bogaerts. The Yankees, we know all the guys they have when you look at Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge and DJ LeMahieu and just going throughout the lineup, all the bats that they have. But the problem with the Yankees this year is they've just been so hot and cold. And even against Tampa Bay over the weekend, they couldn't get a lot of offense going. The only game they won was 1-0 on a walk-off by Aaron Judge on Sunday to help them at least get into the wild card game. And depending on the other results, you would have had maybe a play-in game yesterday, but all worked out where you had the Yankees and Red Sox in the play-in or in the wild card game, basically. I mean, as a play-in game, and Seattle and Toronto didn't end up playing. But Stanton had a really good September. He hit the ball very well. And look, the Yankees have the better starting pitcher on the mound tonight. I mean, that's pretty clear. That's why Garrett Cole is favored. But also, the Yankees, they've been hot and cold at times offensively, and the Red Sox still have the home field advantage. Fenway is going to be on fire. It is coming up tonight. And someone's season's going to end. The winner faces Tampa Bay coming up on Thursday in the ALDS. So now you go from, obviously, this tough game to now playing a 100-win team in Tampa Bay who won the American League pennant last year. But you can check out my best bet for this game on our YouTube channel at VegasInsider.com. And the Yankees and Red Sox, you see a total of 8 there at BetMGM. And the Yankees moving up to a minus 135 favorite against Boston this evening. And tomorrow, and we'll talk about more of it tomorrow, but still mention it now, the Dodgers laying 225 against the Cardinals in the wild card game in the National League. And St. Louis, they won 17 straight towards the end of the season to get them in the wild card. But the Dodgers still a 106-win team, and the Dodgers still have an absolute horse in Max Scherzer on the mound. And for Scherzer, LA has not lost one of his starts this year. They're 11-0 in his 11 starts. So the Dodgers continue to win with Max Scherzer. Max Muncy won't play, which is a hit to their lineup. And the Cardinals, they have two big bats in Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. And they have other guys in there, other complementary pieces in their lineup. I don't know how much I trust the Cardinals bullpen. Adam Wainwright can go 7-8 innings. Like that, we know. We've seen him do that. He's a workhorse. But the Cardinals bullpen at times this year was a little bit shaky. And I don't know if the Cardinals are going to go with another starter in relief. Just kind of not worry about the Giants game one, worry about getting through this game. I don't think that Dave Roberts needs to go necessarily to go to guys like Walker Buehler. I don't know if you got to do that. I mean, the only way you maybe do that is if the Dodgers get down early and Scherzer gets racked, then you go to the other guys. But you still have Buehler and Urias there that you want to save for the Giants series. That you don't want to burn them all tonight or tomorrow night rather. But Dodgers a heavy favorite. We've seen them get down in games 3 and 4-0, and they still come back and win by 2 runs. But I'm just curious to see how the Cardinals respond offensively against Max Scherzer and see if Adam Wainwright can keep this up. He did beat the Dodgers at Busch Stadium last month, 5-4 as an underdog, short underdog. But he went 8 1/3, allowed 4 earned runs. Now let's see if he can duplicate that coming up on Wednesday night when the teams meet up in LA at Dodger Stadium. Before we get out of here, and I just can't believe this, that NBA starts 2 weeks from tonight, NHL starts next week, that we're already at those seasons, preseason's underway for both sports. NBA started over the weekend, NHL's been out for about a week or so, but I just find it amazing that now we're already transitioning into NHL and NBA. So we're going to have baseball playoffs, NHL, NBA, NFL, college football, and then once Major League Baseball is done, we transition into college basketball. So it is never ending, but a lot of fun, though. Now, before we get out of here, our friends at BetMGM, they are the presenting sponsor here of the Daily Insider on VegasInsider.com. And for new players only, this really cool promotion. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. So bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. You have the $200 in free bets. New players only, must be 21 or over, and it is eligible in the following states: New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Virginia, Iowa, D.C., and Arizona. Full terms and conditions apply. BetMGM, they are the king of sportsbooks. I am Kevin Rogers. Thank you so much for watching this edition of the Daily Insider. My thanks to Bruce Marshall for joining us as well to talk trends. And if you missed any of today's episode, you could find it on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. Also, the Thursday night best bet is out for Rams Seahawks, and that's on our YouTube channel as well. You can find that there for Thursday, week 5, that NFC West showdown. I am Kevin Rogers. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at noon Eastern. And as always, best of luck with you.